And we are here in another fun, wonderful, fantastic episode of Walking the Crossroads. I'm very blessed to have Reverend Esmerelda with us, of fame from Salem and the DC area as a practitioner and spiritualist. We're very excited to have her. Remember that these episodes are really fantastic, but please like and subscribe just to help us keep the energy flowing in the right direction and keep the doors to the crossroads open for all of you that want to be here with us today. So we are very blessed to have Esmeralda with us, and she was just about to tell us a little bit about her day and some of the maybe ambiguity she's been having with kind of moving past this waypoint or crossroads in her life.
Well, what I was telling them is that often, and I've had a lot of really, really rough things happen, especially in the last 13 years, which we'll get into in a little bit. But
Sure.
as is often with me, when I'm about to talk about difficult things or move through difficult things, I get opposed by some of it. I prefer to just call it what it is, which is darkness or even what you might even call demonic energy. So I pray to my guides. I say, please help me get through this because I refuse to cancel. I do not like to yield to that kind of thing.
No.
Some of my sisters and siblings in the craft will not call it that. They say forces of the lesser light, which is fine. You know, I do not judge people who do that. So I woke up this morning super sick, uncharacteristically ill. It's not related to any of my illnesses.
No.
It's not acting right at all. So I say, okay, you know what? Enough of this crap. I really need your help because this is not, I cannot do this by myself. So please help me. Abruptly, it stops. So I'm able to proceed with my day. I'm with some of my some family here, and one of them is a really young kid, and she's really happy to see me, and really nothing can oppose a. She always is, but she needs a little of her Auntie M time, so I'm holding her, and that of course nothing defeats a being that is that close to the other side.
Right.
And so I decided let me do a little bit of a salt scrub to get rid of some of the nasty energy. But I start thinking about the last 13 years and how every time I'm at some sort of a crossroads, I'm going to speak the stories of what happened. This always happens. It always does.
Well, sometimes when the energy that you're bringing up is something that's cathartic or traumatic, it may change the homeostasis of your actual physical or spiritual bodies because you're allowing it in to expel it, right? Right? You're
I think you're doing the shadow work, and every time you start to do it, it's stopping you from doing it.
Right.
Yeah, I have.
Does that sound right, or does that sound like that makes any sense at all? Or
oh no, it definitely makes sense. Sometimes it's been definitely, I would say, downright violent manifestations of it that have kept me lost for years. And I'm really fortunate that I've had the tools to be able to not yield and then to get through it. 'Cause I'm at a point right now where,
happy for you.
huh?
I'm happy for you that you had the gifts to be able to deal with this.
I look back at a lot of my spiritual training. I didn't understand it at the time, you know, like why they were so intent on what you need to learn is not from books. It needs to be experiential. You need to become the symbols. Like they said, become the symbols. And I said, oh, okay.
I like that. I love whoever told you that. I like that, what they're doing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
A lot of elders, you know, so become the seal of Solomon, become the 7-pointed star, become all of these things. And it would become very important. Like my path happens to be yoga, you know, and it's there's a pose called 5-pointed star, which not everybody is going to need at the levels that I did. So maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but in 2016, when I'd been in Salem for, I guess, a couple of years at that point.
Is that the beginning? Are we starting at the beginning of the story, or where do you want to start? Because I know we just hopped you right into it, and I apologize. Usually we have a little
I'll
preamble.
say this. All right,
Yeah.
let's ground it in this, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
First, what we'll
You
do
do. Yeah. You say that thing.
First, what we'll do is we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about your magical origin story. We'll talk about the time in your life that you
Mm-hmm.
first became attuned to the mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
If it was allowed for you to do that, if it wasn't allowed for you to do that, if it was popular in your house, if it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, how did you become who you are magically? And then we'll discuss some of the stories that happen after that. So why don't you start there?
So my father and my grandfather, this is the known history because there's
Yeah.
probably a lot that isn't known. They were born on a small port town in Costa Rica, and
Okay.
everybody there had gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And as in, Mr. Smith died. He doesn't know he's dead. Don't disturb him.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the culture in their family,
Yeah.
and but so much trauma happened around that
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't want
Mm-hmm.
any of their kids really to deal with it, to
Mm-hmm.
have that. So it made for a very supernatural, a lot of trauma for me, because
Yeah.
when the moon would go up, I saw everything. So I always tell people that there's more to the other side than angels and demons and spirits. There's a whole universe out there. And
Indeed.
no one checked. That's the one thing that I have to. My father was my
Mm-hmm.
best friend. He's been gone 30 years. I wish he had
Mm-hmm.
said, "Baby, are you okay?" Because I was not
Right.
okay.
Right.
And so I also got, premonitions and dreams and a whole bunch of things that I think that was the first thing that scared me silent. And my father had a really hard job in my early life. He worked for the U.S. government. So we were traveling to, for example, we were in Saigon before it fell and became Ho Chi Minh.
Oh.
So we were in literal war zones.
Okay.
So
Great. How old are you at that time?
4
Do
or
you know?
5.
4 or 5. Wow.
And
And
That's
it
a
so a
lot
worked.
lot
to
of,
take in. That's a lot to take in for an empathic person who you discovered later, I'm sure. But yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, he
Okay.
was aware that you could have these gifts because he grew up around it. And, there was a lot of turmoil in my early life because I'm also a biracial person.
Right.
So he moved us in the middle of all of this with all of the, because I'm sure you all are empathic too. So I don't know if you had this, but I did. I thought everybody could do what I did.
Did not harbor that. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, so that yeah.
Um,
In a
Yeah, yeah.
conservative Catholic family, so yeah, no, I was not. No, I was very clear that
I
not everyone had.
and to say like I grew up in a sense biracial because my father was Cherokee and my mother was of Greek descent. So I had the shamanic side that my father didn't know because he was generations away from knowing because of what happened in America. So I understand where you feel kind of lost because you have different cultures and different identities merging and you don't know who you are as a person. So yeah, I definitely understand that. So you were in Costa Rica. Oh, no,
no,
you were
I
in
wasn't. He
Saigon.
was in. My father was born in
Right. Okay.
1924.
Okay.
And so I'm actually glad you brought me there because he actually grew up at a time where there was a lot of really, I think, savage poverty. That's a really good way to express it. His parents died when he was a young child and he was taking care of a lot of children, but because he was so gifted, when they died, people think they don't believe me when I tell them this, but imagine what that kind of poverty will give you. They dreamed him lottery numbers. He
Oh
won
wow.
after each parent
Nice.
died, got to the United States, went to college. The feds found him because he had a penchant for language. That's how he got the job that allowed him to travel the world. He met my mother in Brazil. Then they
Was he
had
a
the
linguist or was he doing other work?
What kind of work? If you
State Department.
Sure,
I'm not
sure.
allowed to ask. I'm sorry. I
Copy
forgot.
that. Copy that.
First,
Copy that. Copy that.
I've
Okay.
talked to my DC friends. They're like, "We're not allowed to
Yeah,
tell you." I'm
right.
like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot." Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In the 70s,
Yeah.
Right.
it had that kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
I asked him on his deathbed. He still wouldn't tell me. But
Right.
I became a journalist by trade, so I found out what exactly it was. And if he was willing to say, then I would say. But he wasn't.
Right.
Now they say. But
Right.
back then,
Oh right.
he
Sure.
spoke 6 languages, including Jamaican patois.
Oh.
Wow.
But and so we were in Vietnam because that was, if we had won the war, he would have been part of rebuilding democracy. but we lost and we ended up being evacuated. And I remembered
Wow.
too much from that time.
Yeah.
You know, there was, and
Did he
my,
ever go see Bob Marley or anything like that? Considering
I,
his Jamaican
I don't
connectivity.
remember. He
You
was,
don't know?
I think he had trauma from being so poor,
Oh,
and,
right.
um,
I do know
and
that
then
Costa
more.
Rica has struggled with their economy or their vibrancy
Yeah. And his
financially for
mother
forever.
was Jamaican, married
Mm-hmm.
his father was actually South Asian and West African, but his
Oh.
father was, um, now my beliefs, because he was the one who had all these crazy gifts. He passed his
Uh-huh.
kids over
Uh-huh.
fire for cleansing. He
Yeah.
was the one who
Oh.
was the now I've had dreams. I feel like they say I'm the most like him. I think he
Mm-hmm.
was the West African witch doctor because of the
Okay.
way, what they describe. The closest that I could find are indigenous paths to there. Um,
Like Congo or an Obeah man or something of that nature.
Something like
Yeah.
that. I haven't yet had a chance
Mm-hmm.
um, to figure out exactly
Mm-hmm.
where we're from, but it's a
Well,
lot of indigenous paths there have the kinds of things that he used to do.
a
Right.
lot of the fire magic, like you're saying there, and the Congolese magic, the fire magic a lot of times comes from the ground up. So you're dealing with fiery spirits and chaotic spirits, not like the Orisha that come down like water from the sky. You're dealing with more like sorcery, fire magic.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of energy is very powerful, but it's also hard to, handle sometimes. So I understand if there was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
chaos. So
Mm-hmm.
indeed. Anyway,
But
so let's talk about this, for example. When you were a child and you moved into your teenage years, how did you become in your own way initiated into these mysteries? Like what gave you the sense of
What
this is
got the
who I
ball
am, this is
rolling?
what I do. Yeah, yeah. What's your story? We understand your father was very gifted and there's a lot of energy there with a lot of his history, but what exactly was it about you and your gifts that gave you the life that you have now? I think that would be a good way to go with it.
so that evolved because I was a straight Catholic. Everything that I ever did was became mystical. So he raised us Catholic, but then I engaged with the Catholic saints and did the the rituals to them, and then they responded in really demonstrative ways. So witchcraft came officially, I would say more officially, in my late 20s.
Okay.
I was covering the High Court as a journalist, and I found all these stories where I was assigned the stories where kids were being kicked out of school for being uh, magical.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be convinced, the universe had to convince me that I wasn't going to hell because I
Mm-hmm.
became a fundamental Christian. For me, the premonitions were severe most of my life, and severe in the sense of I couldn't get away if I wanted to. I was known as, I didn't know this, but I was known as the neighborhood witch pretty much,
Oh.
because it was,
Yeah.
don't go into the store, you're going to get caught today. They would go into the store and get caught today.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Um,
right, right. So
I
you were the seer, right? You could
pretty
see
much,
things, and they
pretty
knew
much,
you could see things, right? Yeah.
pretty much. And
So you were Catholic, but then you kind of edged towards fundamental Christian, and then you're edging towards witchcraft. So that's in
yeah,
direct conflict with fundamental Christianism,
I think it pretty
Christianity.
much chose me. I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
I reached for any title. I think that those
Mm-hmm.
forces, whether I knew it or not, chose me. And my dad went through a very hard time where, like, I was the one who, the kids were outside playing, I was inside praying the rosary.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had relationships with the other side that
Mm-hmm.
I you know how kids lose their connection with the other side as
Mm-hmm.
they get older? I never did. I
Right.
just
Well,
never
I
did.
don't know how that is because that never happened to me
Yeah, I
either.
know. Me neither. Yeah.
I had to pray the rosary. I had to sit and talk to Jesus for 2 hours twice a week in Catholic school. I got, I go to my aunt's house and they had altars set up with like the Child of Prague and the thing, so there was always spirituality threaded into my life.
And I'd have apparitions with the
Mm-hmm.
Christ that happened when I was a teenager, and then again at 23. And when my father got cancer, I was sitting at the Outback and with him, and I heard cancer, cancer, cancer. And at the time, he was perfectly healthy. So I said, I didn't say anything to him, but I was like, well, how is this going to happen? So it was, there are so many things on earth that we create, like what is this course or this path for. This is why my elders are constantly saying to me, not everybody's you, Esmeralda. Well, I don't even know what that means sometimes, because I didn't get to choose a lot of anything. It just swept me like some tidal wave. So when the Morrigan came in my late 20s, one of her symbols were 3 crows flying in a row until I got the symbol. I call it other side speak. I've had about a half a dozen near-death encounters. Again, didn't ask for that either. And until I get the message.
Half a dozen? Wow.
About that, yeah. Encounters with the angel of death, with various scenarios that I've had to learn the things that I can say, not say, pray, not pray, because when you never lose your connection to the other side, you're not, this is not a hierarchical statement. I'm not trying to say that we are better than other people. What I am trying to say is that the energy that we hold will impact other things differently.
Sure.
So
when you have power as a child, as a teenager, like a lot of us are, that's why we talk about this on Walking the Crossroads, because a lot of us are born with gifts. A lot of us have systems that we're born in that we break out of, or we become more eclectic, or we become, kind of outside the box of what we've been born into, because our gifts transcend the information that we're being given and the shackles that we're being held to, because people are afraid of what we actually know, or what we could know, or what we can do. And like you're saying, a lot of the traditions that you were born into and taught were the only reality are not. And that's just the easiest thing to say. It's not the only way to contact the spirit world. It's not the only way to feel spirit. So all of the tribes from all over the world have different names for these things, right? But we all are swimming in the same water, and we're all arguing about what the name of the water is. Right?
Yes. Yes.
So the name of the water is unimportant, because we are 70% water, so we are the water as well. So there's nothing to argue about. We might as well swim around and have a nice time. But to get back to your point, when you became interested in witchcraft or in other practices outside of your original faith, how did that go?
Were you saying the Morrigan was your
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like that
the
spark.
quarterback calling the plays in the situation?
Yeah. You were first contacted by the Morrigan, which is awesome. My name is Raven, also not Firewalker, but Raven, Morrigan, and me are friends. So I like that a lot. What was your experience with her?
Well, part of it was there was never a particularly safe home for me in Christianity or Catholicism. I hated the idea that only certain people would make it wherever you want to put, however you want to finish that sentence. My body would physically churn when people would damn people wherever you wanted to, because I always knew that was wrong. But I also felt like I was also being damned when they were making those statements. I felt like I was always searching for where I would not only find home, but where I could best serve. And so I left what felt like was doing harm to humanity. I felt like I was meant to serve. And that's where I kind of felt like I think I maybe lived here before. And one thing that my dad always said, he said that when I first could talk, I always said, "Dad, have we been here before?" He said I was 5 years old asking that question. Mm-hmm. I do have a memory, and this is kind of hearkening to when I started to lean into the craft, and even when I was a high court reporter. I remember being in my room saying, "I keep coming back here," just as a young kid. And so the things that began to oppose Christianity was the belief system in the craft, because I had to do this to write stories, was You know, the belief in the living and the dead, the belief in God not as he, but as more than one energy, and
Sure.
the sacredness in all things. And I think that my gifts in not just prophecy, but in empathy and connecting with people as more than just children of some God, and being able to also connect with the traumas, because I'd been in foster care too. So Morgan being a transformation and rebirth goddess was particularly important, because I had a lot of work to do just moving from the damage of an Abrahamic path that said only rebirth through Christ to rebirth through reclaiming your power.
Well, let's look at the fact that
Rebirth through
between
yourself.
Yes.
Right.
between 4 and 5 years old, you were on a battlefield,
Right.
which the Morrigan is a battlefield goddess. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you're very relatable for your
I
energy.
see you on that one, Darren. Good one on that one. Yeah. And
Okay,
that's
yeah.
real. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
you had the echoes of war and the echoes of that kind of energy
Mm-hmm.
and the bravery that gets
Strife,
given some type
strife
of transcendence. Sure,
around you
because
in that energy. Yeah,
that kind of strife gives you stripes, and that gives you
yeah.
something. Indeed.
And in the 90s, PTSD was not acknowledged for anybody except for those who had been to war. And I had not
Mm-hmm.
been to war, and they had just begun. My therapist at the time had been to war, and he said, "Nope, I
Mm-hmm.
see you. I see you. You actually need help. And it wouldn't be acknowledged for another, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. The SSA gave me disability on the first try because they said, no, you've got PTSD on the level of somebody who's been to Afghanistan 4 times. We are not making you fight for this. We're going to give
Yeah,
this."
but there's the PTSD that's also just continual trauma. I don't
Yes.
remember the word for it,
Complex
but it's with a
PTSD.
C. My wife would know
Complex.
because she knows more about this than me.
Complex PTSD.
Right. That.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you've had trauma consistently through a period of time
Mm-hmm.
that gives your nervous system that type of reaction, and you're neurologically set up different. So you have to kind of go through that trauma and then re-emerge as somebody who can become whole from it. So yeah, I understand that. That's good that they actually gave you a diagnosis and gave you help.
What I have a hard time explaining to people too, and I wouldn't listen. I have tried. When I was in foster care, I tried to turn this off because I was really pissed off that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get the premonition that would have prevented certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I wouldn't change having the abilities or the gifts that I have for anything. I am born this way. I can't undo this, and if I didn't have this, you wouldn't be talking to me, because years later, when I developed a rare pancreatic disorder, my doctors didn't tell me that I had it. I told them. I said, "Doctor, I think I have," and I named what it was. And they said, "They don't teach this in med school. How do you know this? We really need to know." I said, "Well, there are 3 studies in Harvard. We don't have time for that conversation. Let's go."
Right.
And so
Impressive. Yeah.
Right.
I'm grateful, and I've picked up the phone, and I've helped. And this is not a boast at all. There's a point where you have to accept what the gods have given you and just use it.
You
Just
have to.
use it.
Yep. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a cost for having it, a cumulative cost for having
Tell me about it.
for so many
Yeah.
years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've accepted that, and part of it is I do feel it. I'll take the
Yeah.
PTSD from
Mm-hmm.
having and having so much, because people will say, "Well, do you hear a specific thing?" And I said, "Well, the problem is I can't really, I have a lot of, I hear a lot. I hear too much." So,
If you're sensitive, I mean, let's just put this out there. If you're a sensitive being on this planet, incarnating at this time, the concept of PTSD or of empathic overload or of sensory deregulation or of any neurodiversity, any of these concepts have to be considered just being aware, awake, and sensitive to the planet and the collective that's happening. So anybody that says we're supposed to be feeling cool with all of this and functioning normally or just going to a job
Yeah.
and feeling cool, like, we don't feel that way. We don't feel that way with the traditions we've been handed because we're finding the traditions within ourselves. And
I
those
did it.
traditions are connecting with all kinds of people in the collective. So
So
I'm
I
not
was at
even
one of
worried
our
about that.
stores in New Orleans, and I was doing a
Mhm.
reading. It was on the Caitlyn Jenner show for her best friend. I think her name was Barbara, and she wonderful, wonderful trans person, but beautiful. I didn't even, so I like helped her a lot. We all cried and hugged, and she ends up dying in an ATV. This was in the news, I guess, the last couple of days. So my father calls me. He's like, "Have you heard about this? This friend of yours that you did a reading
Oh,
for?" And I
right.
was
I
like,
saw that. Yeah.
yeah, right. And she's an
Yeah.
awesome lady. I loved her, loved her. And she helped me and Caitlin connect. And, he's like, "How did you not hear about this?" And I said, I do not cycle into news shows, dude, all the time. I do not, it makes me crazy. That's that
Yeah.
PTSD. It's that empathic. I can't do that all the time, especially now. It
Right.
doesn't matter where the news is coming from. It's all a lot of strife ridden. And yes, it's awful about those young women and the in Albuquerque. It's absolutely awful. But it's hard for us
Yeah.
collectively, the three of us and other people, to really process some of this stuff sometimes.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
hard to watch the news because
Mhm.
the amount that we would love to change this world, the amount that
Mhm.
we would love to see people commune in a different way,
Mhm.
feed each other differently, commune with
Mhm.
each other differently, feel with each other differently. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's kind of like we're part of this like esoteric tribe, and
Mhm.
then we incarnate and we're like, what the are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? Why are you living like this? This is not the only way to live. It doesn't mean like all these people, it could be considered a sickness, right? To want more wealth
Mhm.
than other people. That actually could be considered a sickness. In most tribes, in most animals, if you look at them, you see one animal hoarding everything, you're like, that animal's gone crazy. But in us, we put them on the cover of Forbes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like,
Mhm.
obviously, we're going to go nuts. But
Yeah.
we also within that trauma, like you've had a lot of trauma, right? But within that trauma, we become the great healers if we can. If we don't, lose our center, if we don't, fall to different, controls and different isolation and all that, if we can actually become a person who can manifest the future, then we have these conversations and they obviously can help things. So I'd like to ask you to jump a little bit ahead in the timeline,
Well,
maybe the
okay, how
last.
about this?
Yeah,
There's a continuity between Salem and New Orleans. These are
sure,
two spiritual centers of the North America that are
sure.
considered a little more esoteric, a little more witchy, as they would say. So there's a lot of continuity there. So I'd love to hear about how you kind of got inundated into their local culture as a reader or as a spiritualist. Some of the things you mentioned, some of the things happened and kind of went sideways, or what your interaction with, because we all three of us here have had interactions with Christian Day and Hex. So any of that stuff, we kind of want to, because I certainly there is such a line you can draw from New Orleans to Salem. It's like ridiculous, especially for spiritual workers.
Well, so I went um, to do a story very early
Mhm.
on witches in Salem. I was very well received. I
Mhm.
loved it.
Oh.
The one of my spiritual elders said it's so nice to meet the next generation. So that ended up being initially really good.
Mhm.
Um, I ended up a couple years later reading at one of the big witch shops there. Um, initially really good.
Mhm.
The the problem in that
So,
sort of
so you didn't live there initially, but you kind of decided to relocate, be a local, and kind of get on the ground floor of what's going on there.
in 2012 when I ended up getting sick
Hmm.
and I ended up getting that really bad diagnosis. I needed a Harvard. I started with
Hmm.
Hopkins and then I needed a Harvard.
Hmm.
Again, that's my juice that's
Hmm.
making that happen. And
Hmm.
because I created that connection so many years, like around 2002, that was available to me when I needed the Harvard.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha. Hmm.
Okay.
uh, incidentally, when I first started the craft, the power said, if you choose the path of the craft of the wise, you'll die in your early 40s. If you don't, if you don't choose the path of the wise, you'll likely die in your early 40s. If you do, you'll survive, but you'll have many trials. Well, that early 40s was a pancreatic disorder called type 3 sphincter Bode dysfunction. It's if I hadn't lived it, I would never believe it in a million years. The amount of things that I've encountered and endured and heard doctors say, like, we don't know why you're still alive because of all of these things. Normally bodies die for less. I didn't. I honestly believe that it's straight spiritual power that I'm alive, because physiologically this doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense. But anyway, so because I'd gotten, Harvard said yes to my case. I'd had a long-standing relationship with the shop in Salem, so I had the ability to work and get treated by Harvard and a
And
place
in
to stay.
your proximity to Cambridge was so close, so then that makes
I mean, years-long synchronicity in the world. It's just, that's just crazy.
Right.
Can I just point one thing out, and you can continue? A lot of times in the shamanic initiations or initiations all over the world, there is a death, right? There is a concept of going through the death process to understand the other side. That is when spirit is so close to you, when you are so close to death, right? So you're so close to spirit. So obviously you were meant to have initiatory processes put upon you because you were not able to even be taught these things. These things came to you, but unbeknownst to yourself, so that you could be initiated to the mysteries, so that you could use them in your life. And that's a beautiful thing that you survived them. It's a beautiful thing that you were given these gifts. You went through those trials because you were able to speak them now and give that power to other people. And I think that's great. I just wanted to point that out. Sorry, please continue.
Oh, I'm so grateful for your reflection.
And we were talking about that the other day.
Yeah.
About how you said the only real, she said this, and it was very profound. The only real initiations are initiations through massive, massive supernatural or preternatural experiences that are transformative, whether they be negative, positive, or both. That's the way you really profoundly get
They're
initiated.
witness. Yeah, they're witness. Because if they're in a book, and then you're
Wouldn't you agree, Firewalker?
yeah.
Yes, Firewalker.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. No, I'm feeling I'm channeling her. Sorry, excuse me. We're on
You're
I mean,
channeling. Okay.
No.
I'm saying, like, yes, these are the things that the spirits come to you with. You know what I'm saying? Like, in a lot of literature and allegories of the faith, you always have to enter the shadow realm to be reborn into the physical again, to help people, because you don't have fear of death anymore. You don't have fear of the other side. These things are not an issue for you. So I'm just saying, like, that's great. That's great. I've been
Thank
through
you
it
so
too.
much.
I'm saying, like, I was almost killed when I was 13. Like, I understand the process. I've been through it, and it's a beautiful thing. So it helps you right here, because nobody's different after that. We're all just spirit, and it's just a whole different ballgame after that. Everything's different after that. So
you're
I
reading at
appreciate you.
this mega witch store, one of the big ones in Salem, and you're well received as a reader. And then how
What?
did things unfold from there?
Well, the clients loved me. I loved them. So I loved doing readings there. I loved, I'd write spells on the spot. We had this mojo bar that I adored, working with them after the readings. But it was really commercial. And, despite being able to, I loved being in full regalia and being in an environment where I could just
Tell
be
me what
myself.
regalia means. Is it like Fridays where you
Cloak,
got to have like points of flair on or something like
cloak, cloak,
witchy flair on?
cloak, pentacle, which I wear anyway around here, but you could wear, whatever you wanted. You could have the hubcap pentacle if you wanted. It wouldn't matter. You could have the witch hat on if you wanted. It wouldn't matter. The biggest compliment I ever got in Salem proper, I'd walk down the street, packed, just stuffed to the gills with tourists, they'd walk by more than once and say, "Oh, that's not a costume, is it?" It meant the world to me, because there were other witches who were there, some who were in costume, but they tell me it's not a costume. It wasn't for me. It wasn't. First of all, I'm a priestess in the craft of the wise. That means teacher. If it means I'm wearing something for show, put down the circlet, put down the jewelry, take off the cloak. It doesn't mean anything then.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a student of the Celestine prophecy. I believe in things that bring balance and wholeness, and I walk the path of shadow and light. I don't believe in not saying what you mean and not confronting the sacred shadow. So when they said that to me, first of all, the first time they said it, I almost wanted to apologize to them, because I went like this in a witch tinsel town where everyone is glitter and glam, including me. I wore full face makeup, and I participated in some of it because they made you had to. And
They
when I
encourage you
found,
to be a little theatrical in your
Yeah, it's
music.
also fun. So it's, I mean,
to
there's
my
a fun.
horror, because I
Right.
found out later that they used me. They said, "I want you to get your nails done, get your hair done. You look at Esmeralda and do what she does." I did not like that at all, because I felt like that's using me for harm. And because there's some people who aren't that. I am that way anyway. I
Right.
just happened to do it when I was working too. And when people told me that the person who I was working with told them to do that, it hurt me, because there were people there who they didn't have the money that I had. They weren't making the kind of money I was making at the time. So to tell them to do it felt mean. And
Sure.
that was
Well,
the kind
it's
of,
we deal with that all the time because it's the outer shell that doesn't really reflect the inner shell. When people come in with the hot topic vibe, and that, look, it's cool. You know what I mean? I love the fashion. I love the whole thing because it's still revolutionary. It's still rebellious. I appreciate it, but sometimes it doesn't actually reflect the like what's inside of the person, and it's just for show, and it's just to be scary or something. But
And please
and I get
understand,
that. I get that.
yeah, NOLA, New Orleans is exactly the same, and
Right.
it's more costumey, pomp and circumstance and theater, but it also has the spiritual gravitas as well. And if you know, and I'm sure you know, that wasn't the trials did not happen where Salem is, right? Am I wrong about that happen?
you
No.
are
So
not
I
wrong.
mean,
They didn't.
it's not even the spiritual epicenter of what happened, right?
Well, the other thing was, there were people who walk around saying that I'm a Salem witch and that's where my bloodline is. And they will say privately, "Well, my people are from Danvers or Revere or someplace else." I would never say that. I would say, "No, I'm a witch who works in Salem. I was reared in Virginia and I was born in Brazil." I would never allow them to use me that way.
Ah, shit.
Or
And
they try to make you like your Tituba or something, right? Or try to loop you into
oh
that.
yeah, early on, they
Like, oh
tried to tell me that I should bill as a quote voodoo priestess. I said, first of all, I'm not initiated in voodoo. That's not acceptable to do. It's a closed practice. And I hadn't had any at the time. I hadn't had anybody from. No, there was no Orisha. There was no entity had come to me, for one thing, and I knew better. My line. Um, the only encounter I'd had was with the Amaya, and it was a very quick one. I had not had any initiatory experience that would have allowed me to do that. And they said, "Oh," I had braids at the time, I think. They said, "Oh, but it would be so great. You could." I said, "No, I will not." And I was Celtic at the time. And it was very eclectic, but I would not allow them to use me to do that. And they were encouraging me to do that. I said, "No, that's a hard pass. I will not." But it was
I
that
think,
kind of showmanship and
yeah.
frankly bullshit that I just would refuse to allow.
What was great about our stores that we worked for, and he's still there, but that I worked for a decade and a half, is that they didn't encourage you to do. I mean, if you wanted to pull the bells and whistles like that, that's fine. But it was more like the spirituality is important, and then if you want to do the theater, right? Am I wrong?
I would say this about New Orleans and about Southern magic in general. It's if it works, great. Don't tell anybody how you did it. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
secretive tradition. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
you don't talk outside your circle like a lot of traditions, but that's the Southern magical tradition is really it doesn't really matter how you did it. It matters that you can do it. And it doesn't matter who taught you. You don't have to have a million initiations. You don't have to have a bunch of notches on your belt. Because I've talked to Tata Ngangas that are like Palo priests that are like, dude, you don't have to be initiated. I'm like, thank you. I appreciate that because the spirits were with me since I was born. Why would I have to be initiated into a situation that I'm already conversing in? Now, a lot of people might have a problem with that. Do what you want with that. I personally don't care because I feel like we're all spiritual, right? We're all connected to everything. You can pull any tangent of this spiritual universe towards you. You've incarnated how many times? What things have you done? Right? So, like, I don't think in that kind of linear manner where it's like you have to be initiated to be able to talk to Papa Legba. I'm sorry, but I talk to him all the time. I talk to that frequency all the time because Papa Legba, Coyote, Morrigan, like who are these crossroads spirits? Hecate, right? You talk about all of these traditions. They all have similar frequency points. Who's the ocean lady, right? Who's the guy in the forest? Like everybody has a spirit that's related to these different archetypes, right? So then we're dealing with archetypes. It's all spokes on the same wheel, right? It's all
Well,
spokes
it
on the
I
is,
same
but
don't
wheel.
then
feel like it
Esmeralda
is.
said the other day, you said this, and it was really wonderful. And you said that you have to be qualified to be the person to try to handle infernal spirits or stuff. You have to have the chops, you have to have the experience, and you have to have some of that. Now, where it came from and whether you were initiated is irrelevant to the fact that can you handle it. You can't just throw somebody that read a couple books into a house with demonic presences and hopefully they're going to be. You were saying that to me the other day. And I totally agree with that.
Well, the thing is, I don't. Yes, because and that was kind of my order's point. They said you can read a bunch of books. We could hand out textbooks and have you memorize them.
Yep.
But the reason they don't do that is because left brain knowledge does not prepare you for what happens in the world. Um, I mentioned to him that I've had what they might call sleep paralysis. It was not. The first 19 years of my life, it was a really bad entity. At 19 years old, and energy said to me, you can throw it off and say no. So I did. Didn't come back except for 2 other times. And
These are all
there's
things we learn from to become warriors, right?
yeah. So
How do
my
you
point
become a
was
warrior if you don't go to war?
exactly. And so if
Right.
you are encountering that entity and you don't have your book or you forget in some way, it's not an experience that's in your body, then you're screwed. You have to have the experience in you. That energy has to be in you in a way that's both divine masculine and feminine, which is not a left brain thing. So
That's the Baphomet statue. That's it.
yeah.
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 So I don't think it is my responsibility, job, or right to tell a person who does and does not come to them. I can't tell a person that Papa Legba or this person or that person does not come. If you have incorrectly approached any entity, they will address a person.
Yeah,
No,
it's a
it's not. Yep.
relationship, right? It's a relationship. Because this is one thing I tell people a lot of the time is they'll say, the way you look, you can't communicate with a West African spirit. And I'll say, well, okay, but how about if in another incarnation I was a priest of Shango? What if in another initiation, in another time, I was a priestess of Kuan Yin? How are you supposed to tell me what I've done spiritually and what I am and how I'm supposed to relate to the universe? How are you supposed to know that? I think a
I
lot of these
understand.
traditions are crumbling because most people are tuning in to the fact that we're all connected to everything and that it's all our birthright. Like, I just do not believe in gatekeeping and separating people based on how they look, where they're from, what they've been taught. I think it's all bullshit and I just don't care.
Well, I have a sister who's I forget which god it was. It might have been Papa Legba. An entity that powerful, if she wasn't appropriately or correctly connecting with him, I'm pretty sure he could kick her ass. He didn't, though. This is why I say there's certain things that are above my pay grade. I am just not going to tell a person that they are not supposed to or doing anything right. I have other things, but then again, to the point about trauma, how much has come at me? I just can't use my limited energy to tell a person that they are just wrong.
Well, I
If
find that if
those
you ask the
entities,
right questions, then you'll
yeah,
find out if it's working out or not.
Well, look at
yeah,
Darren. Look at
Yeah.
Darren's path, right? He was raised Catholic. He prayed to all the Abrahamic traditions. He went to Savannah and became a medium, became connected to all kinds of things, came to New Orleans, initiated into Palo and Lukumi with other people. Like this guy, no one would have told him when he was a 13-year-old that he could have done all of these things. And he works with these things all the time and does amazing things for people. So when I get upset because, I mean, I've been sitting in a voodoo shop for 25 years. You understand what I'm saying?
what in the
Like,
voodoo shop sitting?
I've been sitting there in a voodoo shop for 25 years with people coming in telling me that it's not possible that, you know, you should be doing this or doing that in case you're initiated to this or that. And I think it's wonderful that we can have a conversation where it's not based in dogma or tradition, but it's based in consciousness, right? Because isn't
Yeah,
consciousness more important than what tradition you're given? Because isn't consciousness included in all of it? Like, I'm sorry, I'm a mystic. I'm not going to
I
apologize really, but I'm just like, I just don't understand it. I
I
find
am
joy
too.
and euphoria in all of it. And I just don't see any separation. Is that weird? You know, comment below. I'm just saying, like, really though, like, I just don't understand it.
I feel like I was born to walk the balance. Literally, I am half. Technically, if you get down to the root of it, I am half West African and half European from the whitest nations. What am I supposed to do with that? Am I supposed to cancel half of me for the Scandinavian and German and all of the things that started some of the worst things in this country, and half West African that's literally oppressed but also beautiful and mighty? I literally walk the balance in life. I'm not canceling any part of myself in any way.
That's
And
beautiful.
some people say that maybe that's why the strongest magic, Nordic and West African, lives in you. Maybe that's why you're the way you are. I can't. Sometimes I'm just like, no, I'm just not. I have to embrace it all. For the longest time in my adult life, I hated the European side because I just thought that they were evil. Because I saw some grandfathers who
The last
slave masters.
Christianized people on this planet, a lot of them were from West Africa and from the Britain, maybe not Germany, but Scandinavia. And they pushed back against the Christian monasteries and things that were popping up all over the UK. So if you think
Yeah.
about that, all those gods are very close to
Yeah.
the
The
terrestrial
Germanic
makeup.
people did not succumb. They would
Right away.
not
No,
be they would
no.
not be changed, you know, and a lot of those Germanic tribes held on to their elder gods, and they're present today. And some of them have gotten, you know, very popular as we've seen. You know, Darren, he's much more Asatru than I'm initiated into, but like I think it's beautiful because you're a walking lesson. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole point of view. Like your beauty comes from all of these different traditions that can be melded into one thing, and then that language becomes something that binds us together. I personally think that's great. So anyway,
Yeah.
right?
So what happened with Salem? So you were there. You felt it was a little theatrical, and you were doing well, and you were used as a an example for people to resonate with. And
So
then
the thing is that it got to a point where I think I told you the story about how I was asked to stop teaching as I read. So a lot of my clients for the decades loved me because I don't teach like I am the psychic, you are. I just don't do that. I'm a seminary trained minister. I believe in empowering people, and I believe we are equals at this table. I do not wield any authority of any divine over anybody. So one day she said to me, don't teach as you read. Just tell people this is going to happen. And I said, well, what do I do when they ask? She said, because you're the psychic. And so I tried a semblance of that once, and they just were like, what? It did not work. It's not my energy. It was inauthentic. And so eventually, the energy stopped being supportive, and it got so chaotic that someone in her circle started to become very chaotic in my direction. She'd asked me to take care of her animals one day, and they committed some race-based crimes against me. And this one, how bad, how much do you want to get into this?
Oh, we don't have to get very far into it. You don't have to go deep dive, but you could just say that some of these people weren't acting appropriately, and they were.
They acted extremely inappropriately.
Yeah.
It,
Okay.
it ended up being that the Salem PD had to investigate them. They told me to leave town because it was that
Whoa.
bad. It was
Whoa. Really?
very, very bad. They told me that I was in danger and I needed to leave. And so I did. It was somebody who basically hated everything she loved. The energy became that unsupportive. She mocked me in ways that she really shouldn't have. A real community, when there's an act of that kind of violence, would have said, "Hey, are you okay?"
Rallied around you.
They would have, but they did not. And it let me know that even 20 years of being with, knowing somebody meant nothing. And I was left in the wake of that with something called left temporal lobe spikes. It's non-epileptic seizures. So this is where the way that I learned everything on my spiritual path became important, because I couldn't recall the way that I had for so many years. A lot of the spells that I learned, couldn't recall them in total. I'd randomly forget them. And so the next place that I landed, it was with a person who was very afflicted spiritually. And I ended up, just very briefly, I ended up at Knife Point a year later. The year after that, I ended up living at the former Metropolitan Hospital, an apartment complex that was built on that. So I wasn't at the hospital because that's long been closed, but it was an apartment complex that was very well to do. But it was the most haunted place I'd ever
I would
lived.
imagine that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
straight out of the original
Very,
Poltergeist.
very.
Yeah.
And so I had to know how to protect my space. My roommate was really struggling herself and thought, I told my case manager, I said, listen, she's going to come to you and think that I'm breaking into her bedroom. I'm not. This place is haunted. My case manager was from Haiti. And I said, you need to understand that this place has some really serious problems. I can take care of my side of the apartment. I can't take care of hers. The short of that is that roommate was found. I told them, if you don't get her help, you're going to find her dead within a year. They didn't. They found her dead within a year.
Good Lord.
This was, so this is where the consequence of that person in Salem not doing the right thing and containing the person that you needed to contain had horrible consequences on me. So I had to rehab my brain from the things that they ended up doing. And that's what's taken 10 years to bounce back from. But in the meantime, throughout that time, becoming the symbols were really important, because it's not a small thing to live on a haunted place. It was 2 years of living on a place where I'd be making dinner. There would be entities crawling across the living room. At the end of that
You
place,
said crawling?
crawling or walking, or it was.
Well, crawling's a little creepier than walking, I would say.
Oh no! If you saw who these people were, it was. You can't begrudge them their pain. What that hospital did to the mentally ill was truly terrible.
Oh, well, I didn't know it was
Terrible.
mental ill too. Oh,
That
gosh.
subject absolutely is something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a whole hour of what happened to people that are neurodiverse in this world. Yes, that's a whole thing. Absolutely.
Toward the end of my time there, a social worker heard. Let's just say that they understood how bad it was there, because they heard. They physically heard things in that apartment that, let's just say that nobody disbelieved what I was going through, because
Right.
they made
Well, no,
themselves
there's a
known
lot.
to
I
me.
mean, I would say, just to bring it back to a general statement, that there's a lot of things that happen in a space or in a community when you don't have um, respect for the land, respect for people, respect for like people being racist against you. Like there's so many things that we're working with traumatically and karmically in our cultures today, right? And you're kind of a representative of that. You've been treated poorly because you weren't like other people. You know what I'm saying? You were put in situations where you had to have, knowledge of certain things and no one even believed you. This is what we all go through, right? As spiritualists, people don't believe us. They don't think that what we're talking about is real. They judge us from their own perspectives, and it's this is the trauma that we deal with. But you've come out the other side of it,
Right. This was
obviously. So
another
that's
initiation, this apartment
yeah, that's
situation.
kind of where
Yeah.
I was
It
saying
was
is that it's just
definitely one.
another thing your incarnation had to deal with because this is how you have to maintain a sense of center and power so that you can help other people with it, right? Because if they're going through it, you can help them and you still do that. So that's great.
So back on just quickly on the Salem thing.
Hmm?
So they ended up posting pictures of me the year later, like it was nothing. They've built an Airbnb, on the site of where it happened. So they just plow on. They're, a
Right.
marketing machine. It's
Right.
just like
Maybe you
nothing
were too
happened.
real for that marketing machine. Maybe you were just too like
Some
authentic.
people say that. Some people say that.
Yeah.
You're not a
Yeah.
paper doll, a Salem show witch. And that
Yeah.
alone, that's kind of what they do. But I've hit a point where, I'm finally at least able to go back to work, not quite so
Hmm.
damaged, because
Hmm.
um, if for a long time it was devastating to confront just all of that. And I'm definitely not that same person anymore. Um,
Hmm.
it was difficult. I mean, I dealt with a couple of clients here and there, but just I couldn't be in the Salem city limits at all. The Salem PD were going to investigate. They didn't. It was
Hmm.
10 years of just being hollowed out. And I can say
Hmm.
that,
Right.
I did a lot of work to not be.
Well, let me say I've talked to maybe three other practitioners, some of which I did not care for, some of which that were okay, but three of these people came to New Orleans and were told me that they were kicked out of Salem. I'm not kidding.
This is
And
not
two
an
of them I did
uncommon
not care for.
story and not no hate on Salem. There's a lot of beautiful people there that I have met
Right.
and communed with, but
Well, two of these people I didn't like either, so I get why
yeah,
they got. Someone was boiling a baby's fat or something. I don't know what it was. Now I don't think that's true. No, I mean, but that was the story I heard, so that was like, okay, I don't know, like, so it's a crazy thing, but
there's a lot going on there. And also, any place that has a high level of spiritual activity, you're going to have bad actors and good actors.
hmm.
You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like maybe you
Yeah.
were a good actor, you were trying to help people, you were getting involved with it from a soul level. Other people are getting involved with it from a monetary level. They're just trying to like be cool. And that's fine. I live in New Orleans. Darren's worked there. We know what it's like when people are not cool about it
And
and
there are some
yeah.
witchy wars in New Orleans too. We know
Yeah, oh
people that are
gosh.
not around
I
because of
I
that.
could
Yeah.
I could do an episode on that, but I think what I would like to say at this point is
Hmm.
where are you at now and where do you see yourself
Yeah. Where
going?
are we
Because you're
going?
walking,
Yeah.
we talk about walking through the crossroads, right? That's what we're talking about. You've been through a lot of different crossroads. You've had a lot of different trials and tribulations, but where does it leave you now and how do you feel now in your own power?
I think I finally feel like I am not fighting with those traumas anymore. I've
Hmm.
recently gone back to client work where
Hmm.
I
Great.
I feel
Great.
like I'm doing what I was actually born to do.
Hmm.
Like nobody can take that from me. They did take it for a long time because I just couldn't face it. I could barely open tarot cards because it
Hmm.
just,
Right,
for me, my family, chosen and otherwise, are the most important
Hmm.
thing to me. The most
right,
important. And
right.
that was singularly one of the worst hurts I'd ever encountered. And so I feel like I've I didn't know what that spiritual work, where it was going to lead me, but I don't know exactly when it happened, but I just kept working and confronting that shadow and not knowing exactly where it would land. And I moved from New England back to the southern states. And I think that somewhere in all of that effort, just work, just face it, it landed me to that space of, okay, they're still me. They never took
Right.
me. It felt like they did,
No,
but they
And they
never
no.
took
can't.
me.
They can't.
Mm-mm,
Right.
mm-mm.
No,
No,
They can't.
not at all.
They can
no.
try to help you forget, but they can't really take it away. So that's
Um,
a good
so
takeaway from
we are
that. And
going to
that's a
make
good
sure to
takeaway from
put
anybody.
your email and maybe your Instagram in the notes of the show if anyone wants to get a hold of you for a consultation. I will be back in town if you want to come visit on the 30th and 31st at Sticks and Stones. If you want to come say
Yeah,
hi.
yeah.
Yeah, please do. And I'm also teaching a class in creation of a powerful home altar, and that will be on August 1st. So if you want to come visit, and for anyone that's in the DC area, please check that out. But this has been, I really hope this kind of measuring through or walking through your path is going to help some people navigate through some of what they're dealing with as nascent witches or nascent spiritualists. I think that all of our stories are relevant, and I think they're important because we're all living our own stories and we're all walking our own crossroads of a nature. So that's great.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So thanks again, as I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And F. Walker, keep it crispy, and we'll see you again on Walking the Crossroads.